Welcome to Channel 17, the Town of Colonie Government Channel.
Hello and welcome to Focus on Health. I'm your host, Peggy Mello. Today's guest is Mary Beth McCue, a registered dietitian in Latham and Saratoga. Thanks for joining us today. I'm wondering how you got interested in the field of nutrition. Can you tell the viewers?
Sure. As an adolescent and teen, I had a lot of issues around weight, had a lot of weight fluctuations, was always striving to feel healthy, to feel good through exercise and through dieting, a lot of different methods of dieting, and trying to educate myself in whatever methods a teen and adolescent educates themselves. In the mid-70s and 80s, or late 70s, I did a lot of magazine reading. I wasn't really aware of professional nutritionists or dietitians, counselors of any type, so I kind of did my own thing, which was not the best, healthiest thing.
Did you study in college?
I went to school and did a program designed by the American Dietetic Association, which was a Bachelor's of Science in Food and Nutrition. And in order to become a registered dietitian, my options were to do a minimal of an internship program beyond that. So it's a 5-year minimal program, which I did with some graduate classes.
And what certifications did you receive?
After you test nationally with the American Dietetic Association, you then become a registered dietitian if you've passed the test. And I also am automatically grandfather claused into different state licensure or certification. So I was recently in Massachusetts, and I've maintained my licensure in Massachusetts as a licensed dietitian nutritionist. And in the state of New York, they haven't gotten the licensure level, but they have a certification level for nutritionists and dietitians. So those are my credentials.
So Massachusetts is LDN and New York is CDN.
Correct.
Okay. And CDN is sort of a step up from a registered dietitian, right?
Not necessarily. It's just a way. The states have tried to help the public identify how would you understand if a nutritionist that you're going to see is actually credible. And because essentially you can be a nutritionist yourself. You can set up a shop and you can claim that you're a nutritionist, and you can set up nutrition counseling. Anyone can do that. So the states have all gotten together. Actually, there's probably about 40 states now that do have licensure. And there's a list of guidelines in education and training and in ongoing education and training that one needs to meet in order to be approved as a licensed nutritionist or a certified nutritionist. They don't have to necessarily be a dietitian, but dietitians are, I believe, grandfather clause automatically received in any state licensure or certification based on the amount of education and ongoing training and education they continue to have. What I've done beyond that, because this is conventional training in nutrition, what I've done beyond that in terms of my certifications and training and experience, I've seeked out organizations such as the Institute for Functional Medicine and done very intense training with them in the area of what's called functional nutrition or integrative nutrition, which I know we're going to get talking more about. And that's a more in-depth learning experience and practice with clients to help them really recover from chronic conditions, to help them understand more what might be keeping them from healthy body composition beyond the conventional education that dietitians have.
It's more of a holistic method of healing, right?
More of a holistic measurement of looking at the body. And when we say that, we are looking at the entire body. For example, if someone was to come in and say, you know, I have 15 pounds that I just can't get rid of, or, you know, I've been struggling with weight issues for 10 or 20 years. Well, when we look at the body holistically, then we find out that there are other imbalances that are going on in the body that's contributing to that superficial condition, that obvious condition. In other cases it might be diabetes. In other cases it might be heartburn, gastroesophageal reflux. So someone comes in, they say, I want to get off this medication because I'm actually feeling worse. Well, in some ways, and the physicians that I get trained under explain to me, they actually do create more imbalance, some of those medications, in the internal lining of the digestive system. They do give immediate relief to some people as well. But in the long term, what someone really wants to try to do is heal and overcome that condition. And so what I do is explain to them what's going on physiologically in the body that's creating that action. There's usually a lack of enzyme systems happening, enzyme action. What's helping, the enzymes help break down food particles. And when there's a lack of that support in the body, the food can sit in the stomach longer than it should. And then it kind of ferments and it gives off gas. So, a lot of these conditions are brought about by stress, some genetic factors, and also, dietary measures. But when we look at this particular system in the gastroesophageal reflux, we can help people modify diet and foods. We can help them implement certain nutrients that will help them heal some of the lining of the intestinal tract that's been compromised and damaged through that action of the reflux, and get them to an area in a very short period of time, in a few weeks, of relief and resolution. And it's 95% of the time people wean off their medications. They're using supplements for a short period of time. They're monitoring their diet in a healthy way, eating a lot more whole foods, they learn that might be aggravating the particular situation they have going on. They withdraw from those for a short period of time. Once the body's healed, they can get off the nutrients that are healing because they're completing the healing process. And then we look at other more foundational nutrients like a multivitamin or omegas.
And being healthy or feeling healthy isn't necessarily about weight. It's also about how your body feels, right?
Yes. There's a lot to be said about healing from within. I mean, we are such a culture that's so focused on how we look. And there are a lot of laypersons, athletes, whatever, that are so focused on looking well and feeling well, and yet they're exhausted. And they're missing some particular important points that are going on with their biochemistry or the physicality of their body that's contributing to their fatigue or their depression. Another common area that we see a lot of what we call low-level functioning would be the adrenals. The adrenal glands are part of the endocrine system, which are mainly systems that regulate hormone balance. And the adrenals are two small walnut-shaped like organs that each sit on each kidney. And they are our fight or flight organ. And that means that they respond a lot with the stressful situations to life. So historically, when we're up against a stressful situation, we run away from it or we fight it. And we release the stress and it's done and it's over with. Now, on a daily basis, we have a lot more stressful situations that we're up against time after time, and a lot of times higher intensities than ever before. I mean, just put on CNN. It's it's a stressful situation to see the goings on in the world today. So, but people are stressed about their health. They're lost about why they feel the way they feel. They're not getting answers to chronic conditions, and they're not getting any resolution. So getting back to the adrenals, we can help people rebuild their adrenal glands that have become fatigued and depressed through nutrients that run the adrenal glands. And we work with products that are what we call practitioner line products. They're all based on scientific studies and research. They all are proven to do what they say they do on their labels. There is no label standardization in the supplement business. So unfortunately, a lot of times when we hear negative press on supplements, they're looking at supplements that are the lower grade, lower level supplement companies. We have companies that we deal with where I work and as a nutritionist that cater to practitioners that work with clients on a regular basis, and that cater to practitioners that work in retail business where they are recommending supplements to customers so that they are appropriately used. They exceed a lot of the European standardization of quality and control on all their product labeling, pharmaceutical grades.
So what exactly is a wellness consultation? What does it involve?
A wellness consultation involves a lot of things. When we sit down with someone, we listen to their life story. What's going on? How do you feel? What are your goals? What would you like to get out of this? What are your symptoms? We specifically look at stress and levels of stress and help people understand the impact of stress on the body and at a cell level. When a body is stressed, so aren't the cells. And in order for the body to respond to therapy of some sort, we want the body to calm down so that it will receive nutrients and receive food in a healthy way. We try to encourage people to get into lifestyle changes that will help them get more control on stress and decrease stress. We're not going to eliminate stress, but we can certainly minimize it. So we work on a very individual basis. What might be helpful for you in lowering stress might not be the same for me. So different examples could be meditative organizations to learn about meditation, yoga, dance, religious groups, counseling, singing, dancing, hiking. We look at exercise patterns. We look at if someone is able to even do exercise. And we ask them how they feel after they do it. So for example, if someone's really stressed and tired and they exercise and they feel worse, this is not a time to be doing exercise because the body's been really depleted, it needs to be rebuilt up. We need to look at that. But we do cover exercise and work with it in an individual way for them to get into healthy forms of exercise on a weekly basis.
And exercise doesn't necessarily mean cardio. It doesn't mean that you're running or
right.
sweating.
I usually use the guidelines established by the American College of Sports Medicine, 4 to 5 times a week if people can. Some people start 1 or 2 days a week. Again, it's very individual. We try to get people's heart rates up. I explain to people how you monitor your heart rate, how you know where your training zone is, safe zone. All this too is secondary to the opinion of your physician. I'm not a medical doctor, so if there's any indications the physician wants to implement in terms of restrictions, that always is sort of the canvas over the whole guideline to exercise. So stress and exercise, we look at eating habits. How do you eat? Talk to me about how you eat. We talk about relationships. We talk about job. There's a lot of people that have a lot of stress in their lives secondary to some of those vital relationships in their lives. We talk about medications they're on. We look at supplements that they're on. We look at the quality of these supplements. We talk about sleep patterns. Sleep and stress are extremely important because if that's not controlled and brought to a minimal in terms of stress, and if a healthy sleep pattern is not established, it's really hard for someone to help resolve any chronic condition in their body. It's hard to get the body back to balance. The sleeping time is when we recover, when our immune system works, from whatever we're trying to do during the day to help rebuild the body as well as it recovers from a hectic day. So there's a lot of people these days that are not sleeping properly. They don't need sleep medications. They may need some balancing with hormones. Doesn't necessarily have to be through prescriptions. They need some talk. They need some guidance with lifestyle changes. We do have nutrients that we work with for sleep. If someone is not able to get it together with sleep over the course of a week, it's that vital that they start sleeping healthy. So we work with a lot of natural herbs and supplements for that. So, and then, we roll out plans, specific plans, based on your symptoms, based on some lab work. We might look at some other functional labs that I know we're going to talk about here. We come up with information about what's happening, why someone is feeling the way they're feeling, what we can give them with nutrients, what kind of advice we can give them with food, because food is a function of health. And we look at functional foods. There are some foods for some people that are going to cause illness and a state of chronic distress versus some foods will cause them to feel more vital. So we establish a pattern around food and exercise and stress and sleep, and getting people to just feel good and helping people to understand how to live, how to take care of their bodies and how to live.
I think I can imagine there are people that don't realize depression. They don't realize they're clinically depressed. They don't realize they're fatigued. It's just, they're just tired every day and don't think that there could be any kind of resolution to it.
You're right. You're right. And, you know, I'm so thankful that I get to work in a field like this, because it's great to work with people to help them recover from those feelings. It's great to help someone in a conversation realize you can change this. This is resolvable. There are a lot of people that are tired. There are a lot of people that are depressed. But when you read the technical clinical information, such as information that would be in a book like the Institute for Functional Medicine, the psychiatric functional physicians in this country, in the world, that work in functional medicine, what we're talking about, understand there are several different areas in the body that contribute to depression if these areas or if these systems are down and not operating well. And when we look at these areas, either through symptoms and or through labs, we're able to identify what is feeding this imbalance in the brain. For example, heavy metal toxicity. A lot of people have, and you can get heavy metals measured in the blood, and in other ways also. You can look at how people get rid of heavy metals, such as mercury. And it's been documented over and over with depression, with attention deficit disorder, with MS, that when people get these heavy metals out of the body, their depression resolves like that. Their MS resolves. I've worked with clients that had MS, and they had resolved their conditions in 3 months, something that they had had for 15 years. They had one less lesion on the brain, which is one of the diagnostic tests that they do when you're looking at MS. She had a lot of intestinal problems. So we resolved a lot of that. So again, it wasn't just, you know, looking at MS and the neurological and the brain composition of that disease process, but also looking at what else is going on for symptoms in the body. And could they be affecting this disease that we're looking at in this one little area of the body?
Was a lot of it environmental?
It was food related, it was stress related, and yes, you could say environmental, because she had toxins within the body that were happening because of imbalances in bacteria in the body. So we got that balance, because your bacteria that's overgrown, if it's bad bacteria, gives off its own waste, which creates higher amounts of toxicity level. Plus we're taking in toxins from the environment every day. And the reality is we're taking in a lot, and a lot more. If you're living in a city, you're taking in more than someone that's living in the country. Different bodies handle toxicity different though. So for some person, they might be very susceptible to gasoline and pesticides and herbicides from their foods, versus someone else who can clear it and handle it better. Again, this is a basis of functional medicine, looking at the individuality of each client and not going by what some physicians that work in this call cookie cutter medicine. You know, oh, if someone's toxic, then this must be going on, and here you go, you have toxicity, this is what you do. No, it's far more individualized than that when you're working from a medicine standpoint. From a nutritionist standpoint, I work within my realm to individualize supplementation, individualize nutrients and foods as best that I can, based on the clinical information I might be getting from another practitioner like a physician or other practitioners that the client might be working with, or the client itself.
So you actually have to have people skills as well to be able to understand what's going on inside of someone.
Yeah.
Recognizing depression and stress, and being able to interview them and know exactly what's going on.
Right, and you know, it can sound overwhelming, but for example, if someone doesn't mention depression and they have it, that's okay, because if they're talking about other symptoms that they're aware of, then those are the symptoms we should be looking at right now. The client really understands what's going on in the body. They may not be able to technically explain it in clinical terms, but you know, the reality is most of them have 15 minutes with a typical physician, practitioner, office visit. It's not enough time to really understand what's going on in the body. And, instead of giving someone medications and answering a small part of their story, a small part of their list of symptoms, we are now spending an hour, more than an hour. A lot of practitioners, I could spend an hour and a half, but it's always an hour anyways when someone sits in a consultation. And we're getting a broader picture. And we are taking more time and more patience to work with someone to resolve and recover at deeper levels, at a cell level, what's actually imbalanced.
So we haven't actually mentioned where you practice.
Right. I practice at two area locations, one in Saratoga Springs at the Roosevelt Spa and Bath at the Saratoga State Park, and also at a wellness pharmacy, Fallon Wellness Pharmacy off of Exit 6, Troy Schenectady Road.
In Latham.
In Latham.
So a person goes in, they get their wellness consultation with you, and you want to talk about functional labs. I know you mentioned that earlier.
Sure. A person walks in just for the, let's go to that point, and a lot of times we discuss things on the floor. If someone walks in, they have a couple questions, they're looking for a particular supplement. We have at the pharmacy, highly trained staff of nutritionists, clinicians, pharmacists, technicians that will direct people right on the floor for information and for products. A lot of times they come back and they're telling us about their progress, they're getting off medications, even with that level of work. Many times people come in and they have a lot more information to share, a lot more questions, and really need to sit down in a consultation process. At that point, they need to decide whether or not they want to do that, if they can spend the extra money, which in the long run is really going to be most cost effective, because if they sit down in a consultation a couple times, they resolve this issue that they're having for the past 10, 20, 30 years in a matter of several months, it's extremely cost effective. Now they're much more productive, they're healthier, they have less health bills in the future, they have less medical bills and pharmaceutical bills. We do work with nutrients as well as pharmaceuticals. We are a pharmacy. So, there's a place for it all, and we help people come to whatever goal they want in terms of nutrients and pharmaceuticals. So they sit down, they may have some lab work done. You asked about labs, they may not. We do assessments based on what's called symptomology. In the study of functional medicine and functional nutrition, there's a pattern of symptoms that go with many different imbalances in different areas. There's a pattern of symptoms that go with depression. There's a pattern of symptoms that go with imbalances in the intestinal tract. There's an imbalance of symptoms that go with hormonal imbalances. So that's one area that we look at. Then with the wellness consultation that we just talked about, there's a plethora of information that we gather. We do talk about different lab studies that people may want to consider outside of the consultation. It's not necessary to move forward 90% of the time. Some of those labs, first of all, the labs are usually what we call functional labs. Functional labs are not in New York State. They are outside of New York State. There are several of them in this country that all the states use. They give more specific, individual information on symptoms. For example, someone may have some imbalances with some certain bacteria or yeast in the intestinal tract. There are no lab in conventional medicine that would look at the environment, the microbiology, if you will, that the functional stool analysis will look at. You can look at neurotransmitter balances or imbalances, which are the chemicals that operate in the brain, that run the brain function, that run sleep patterns, that run mood patterns.
So generally it's a urine sample and a stool sample?
Or saliva.
Or saliva.
You can measure hormones. That's another area, the sex hormones, the hormones that are generated by the adrenal glands. So those are done by saliva. Those are more accurate measurements. The medium that you use, whether it be blood, stool, saliva, breath, is the medium that's derived out of years of research that is the most accurate measurement in looking at these chemicals in the body, these substances in the body. New York State, unfortunately, is the only state in the country that does not allow for reimbursement in these labs, but they do allow for some of the labs. So,
but you're saying they don't even allow a lab
to be
to be in
reimbursed.
business in New York State.
No, they don't allow the lab to be reimbursed through your insurance. These labs just have established themselves in various areas of the country. New York State probably wouldn't allow them to come in the state. I can't answer that, but I would guess maybe not, because they're not pro-insurance coverage, which is very unfortunate, because the rest of the country understands the impact, the value of such labs. But at least practitioners can order these. Physicians and chiropractors order these. I don't order them. So what I do is I steer people in direction if you want to have more information about hormone levels, because maybe at this point we've resolved a certain amount of symptoms, but there's some other symptoms that may indicate imbalance in hormones or imbalance in the digestive system in an area that we haven't really seen through the discussions and the symptomology assessments. You understand what I'm saying? So that's when the $50 to $100 lab cost can provide valuable information that somebody's missed for 30 years. And I myself have experienced all these. Most of the labs we're talking about I've had done. I want to experience those. I want to have them done. I talk about them with my clients. But they're also been very useful tools for me to look at. Because as we've talked about in the past, several years ago when I got involved with functional integrative nutrition, I really came into it because of my own imbalances in my digestive system. And I worked with physicians for several months, close friends that were physicians that I worked with for 9 years in a hospital setting that couldn't find any answers for me. And it was through functional labs, through physicians that I went down to see in Boston when I was working in Massachusetts. They introduced me to the whole process of functional medicine. They and an organization within the American Dietetic Association, it's one of what we call practice groups. It's a specialty practice group for, it's called Nutritionist and Complementary Care. I'm one of the founding members. I used to be on one of their board members. And they have a website as well. We can provide that to your viewers. But through them, they directed me to where I should go and how I would become, knowledgeable and educated. And then I seek more education and experience in this so that I could help others after I helped myself.
So, quickly, since we're running out of time,
Yeah.
I just want to quickly gloss over whole foods, because we
Yeah.
haven't even talked about
Great.
diet
Yeah,
yet.
I was just thinking of that. Stress and nutrients really contribute to what we've talked about today. When you're looking at whole foods, you're looking at a substance of food that the body's able to identify with versus processed foods, which has a lot more refinement to it. It's been broken down, has a lot more additives and preservatives. I want to also talk about soil, though. We talk about whole foods. Right. I talk about the processed farms versus the organic farms. Because soil is very important when we're talking about nutrients. That's where we get our nutrients.
Organic versus
non-organic.
regular soil.
Right. And, there's in-betweens as well. It doesn't maybe have to be 100% organic, but we also talked about the 100-mile diet. And if we can get people to eat more locally within 100-mile range, now you're eating foods that are going to be more closely picked when they're ripe off the vine. That's when they're most nutritious. And if you've picked a food off the vine from an organic soil, which has over 120 nutrients versus non-organic soil, which has less than 10 nutrients, you're getting a huge amount of difference. Mm-hmm. If you can join a community-supported agriculture farm, if you can go to your local farmers markets, if you do buy organic in stores, just a word of caution, if you're buying organic from California, you're not going to get as nutritious of a choice if you buy within a 100-mile radius, because you're buying a food that was picked before it was ripe, mm-hmm. and it never got to the nutritional density that it had the potential to get to. It's going to ripen artificially. It's going to be handled a lot. It's going to be traveled a lot. There's going to be a lot of fumes and gas and whatever. I mean, there are some toxicity exposure to the food on the way to the other side of the country versus if you ate out of the New England area.
So you can tell by looking at something where it comes from.
Well, not necessarily by looking at it, no. We will give the 100-mile diet local website to the viewers as well. Some of them will be labeled and identified. You can ask people in the stores, where was the produce from? Where was the meat from? That's another thing. You want to buy meats that are free of hormones, free of antibiotics, because those, again, are toxins that you're adding more to the system, which is already not feeling well. So these are the things we try to have people pull from their diet, we eliminate it out of the body, and then we start afresh and new. And we've essentially helped people rebuild a new body, because your body's always breaking down and rebuilding. So we have the opportunity through whole foods, through supplements, through the individualization of planning a wellness program for yourself to rebuild a program and rebuild a body that's healthier. Deepak Chopra says we have a new body every 10 years. That's the rate that it rebuilds itself. I believe there's evidence that shows we can do it even faster through the nutrient supplementation that we do when we're working with chronic conditions. But whole foods, local whole foods, local organic foods are the way to go. And there's lots of great recipes online. The Whole Foods Market is one organization that has great recipes. We don't have a Whole Foods in this area, but if we did and they were selling organic locally, that would be a place to go. There's also local natural food stores in this area they're great, as well as the natural farms, the organic farms, and the farmers markets.
So where can one go for further information? We have books.
Right.
I know some of these books we have in our library collection.
Yeah.
If we don't have them in our library collection, we can get them
Yeah,
through
great,
our
great.
interlibrary loan process.
Super.
We are going to have a list of the books
Yeah.
shown to the viewers
Great.
afterwards, and also the list of various websites
Right.
that they can go to.
Right.
If the viewers don't have internet access, they can come into the library. We
Great.
can certainly show them
Great.
the websites and print information out.
Great. Yeah, do you want me to mention a few of those websites? Or
Go ahead.
Just quickly, something that's a little bit more technical, especially for people that are in the business of healing and health, the Institute for Functional Medicine. But for the layman, you can also go on the website and look at their book. Their bookstore is phenomenal. If you also want to find practitioners in the area, there's been people from various areas of the country that have found me through the Institute for Functional Medicine. Also, United Holistic Practitioners. It's a new group formed within the last few months. I'm on their board. Their mission is to educate the public on choices beyond conventional medicine. You can go to Fallon Wellness Pharmacy. You can go to Saratoga Integrative Practitioners Network. There's a biography about myself on that network.
It's quite in depth.
It's quite in depth. I need to shorten it up, and I need to create my own website. The Roosevelt Bass has a website. Dr. Hyman, he's a wonderful physician within a 100-mile radius here. He's got a couple great books. You can go on his site. You can go to the local farmers markets, community-supported agriculture websites, and there's other websites that I know we're going to be putting out there too as well, several of them.
There's so much that we did not cover today.
There is.
Since we only have a half an hour slot. I would love to have you come back.
Great,
and
I'd love to come back.
we can talk more about food, specialized diets, etc.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much for coming.
Thanks for having me.
And thanks for watching. We'll see you next time on Focus on Health.
Welcome to Channel 17, the Town of Colonie Government Channel.